Hi there, it's John Moore here, and I am a shamanic teacher, and I live in the great state of Maine in the United States. And I'm actually talking to you on what some people call Samhain or Halloween or All Souls Eve or All Hallows Eve, October 31st. And Samhain is, a Celtic word that means end of summer. Well, it sure is the end of summer here. Although it was a nice day, it gets cold this time of year here in Maine. And there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of, if you're not from the United States or, you don't know, there is a tremendous amount of celebration. People have parties. Kids go from door to door and get candy from strangers. Sounds crazy, but that's what we do. It's called trick-or-treating. We decorate. We have, jack-o'-lanterns, and this all has to do kind of with the old traditions. This was a time where the veil between the spirit world and the ordinary world was seen as thinner, and ancestors could come back. And in the old days, you would have a feast, you would have a bonfire, you would light jack-o'-lanterns to scare away the bad spirits and invite your ancestors in, and have what some people call a dumb supper, which is you set out supper for ancestors to come in and eat with you. And this is a tradition that's kind of got some commonalities in other cultures, interestingly, and that, Day of the Dead kinds of things, or feasting with ancestors. So along with that, I want to talk about the word spiritual or spirituality, and I want to have a different definition of that than maybe you're used to. I have this working definition of spiritual. Like, what is spiritual? What constitutes spiritual activity? I practice shamanism and some other things, and some people might identify with a religion that is their spirituality, that is their I'm Christian or Christian, Catholic, or some other faith of Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or Islam or Muslim, and all of these things. And that's fine, and those are certainly spiritual activities. But I like to use a definition of spirituality that is much more inclusive. And in the United States, anyway, there are more and more people who identify as spiritual but not religious, meaning they practice some form of spirituality, or they have some spiritual practices, or they have spiritual beliefs, what have you, but they don't adhere to an organized religion. They don't necessarily identify with an organized religion, or they identify really loosely. They may not go to services, whether that is temple, mosque, or church, or something else. And so, that's an ongoing and growing thing. And, there are people who are kind of also, outside of that might not be particularly spiritual, but maybe we can have an inclusive definition of spirituality or spiritual that kind of includes other people. And gosh, I even, my definition, which I'm going to give you in a second, also includes people who may be atheistic or agnostic or, what have you, don't necessarily believe in deity. Here's my definition of spiritual, or what makes something spiritual, what makes an activity or a belief or what have you spiritual. It is simply this. Something spiritual is something that gives us a greater sense of connection, or a sense of connection with something that is greater than ourselves. So this might include God, a singular God, or gods, or it might include, the universe, if you don't want to get a deity involved, or could include, the spirit world, or nature, right? Nature, all of the earth and nature is greater than we are as individuals. It could also include your community, right? And anything that sort of makes you feel deeply connected there, or a relationship between two people, when you feel really deeply connected to that, and you'll know that it's spiritual because you have this sense of I'm an individual, but I'm also part of this greater thing. It's not just about belonging to something like I belong to a business that I work for, or I belong to a town that I live in, or I belong, but it's this emotional sense of belonging, that I am a part of this. For me, as a shamanic practitioner, my belief system is very animistic. That is, spirit is everywhere. And I like to say that in shamanism, everything is a spirit. Some people might say, oh, I'm a person and I have a spirit. And that is one angle where you're very closely identified with the physical body, and you say, I have a spirit. I have a spirit that lives inside my body. And I can say that my experience is that your spirit encompasses much, much more, well beyond your body, and that you possess your body only temporarily, but parts of your spirit are undying and unborn and live on forever and ever. And I'll have future videos about that. I'll talk about life and death and all of these important issues. But honestly, and this is something that's not just shamanistic, but that exists in other systems of belief, and I'm thinking about some forms of Buddhism, for example. Honestly, we are connected to everything. And so if we go to, and I'm not an expert in the Vedas or Sanskrit or Hinduism or whatever, but you do have this concept of Brahman, which is the oversoul, right? Which is the soul of everything there is. It is the unity out of which we all extend, and feeling connected to that through your Atman or individual soul. And then in some forms of Vedanta, for example, they say Atman is Brahman. My individual soul is actually the oversoul. There's no differentiation. Underneath it all, it really is kind of all the same. And I like to say that understanding the divine source of everything and how we can all be individuals in that is a little bit like looking at a pure white light that shines through a prism, and the prism breaks that into rays of all different colored light across the entire spectrum, right? So there's this diversity that happens on the other side of that prism. There is, it might look like, individual beams of light, but the source is this pure white light that's hitting the prism. If you were to remove that white light or block it or cut it off, all of these other rays of light would cease to exist, because the white light is the source. And you can shift the prism and cause a different pattern of light, or you can block some of the colors of the light. You can cut them off or whatever, but that doesn't stop the white light. The source never goes away. And that is, for me, that, you feel free to believe what you believe, but that is probably the most accurate way of that I can describe my experience of our individual divinity being part of a whole thing. So I said before, I think even people who are atheists can experience, or don't believe in spirit at all, can experience a sense of spirituality. And that might seem a little weird because many atheists reject all things spiritual, all things except for the physical, or that is a type of belief system, that there's nothing beyond material reality. And even that is starting to break down with some of the really crazy modern physics, some of the quantum stuff that's going on, that their physical reality is really weirder than we thought it was, and really kind of not real. And so how can somebody who doesn't believe in spirit sort of experience this spirituality? So one of the things that I believe that goes along with this is, the deeper you go into almost anything, the more spiritual the experience of it you'll have. And I'll give you a couple of examples that will probably make this clear to you. I was having a conversation with my my romantic significant other the other day, and we were talking about basketball, right? And I'm not a huge watcher of sports, and neither is she. But and this was true for a lot of people. She said, I used to watch Michael Jordan, even though, don't care about, he used to play for the Chicago Bulls, didn't really care about Chicago or the Bulls. We live in the Northeast. We were like Celtics people if you watched basketball. But watching him was like poetry in motion. And for him, I would say that basketball was a spiritual experience, and watching him was for many people, because it drew you in and it drew him in. And it was almost like basketball was playing through him rather than him playing. And you can see that with almost anything or anybody who does something at a very deep level. For me, it was what sort of began all this was practicing martial arts and stepping into flow. And flow is a really big topic in psychology and in performance and everything. But when you step into flow with something that you're doing, it's almost like your ego steps back and you're just kind of floating as part of the universe. Even though you might be putting a significant physical effort into what you're doing, it doesn't feel like you're straining. It feels like you're in line with the universe, you're in rhythm with the universe, things are going on. And that, I think, is a very spiritual experience. You can see it with people who are amazing musicians or amazing artists, or just really, really focused on something that they have perfected over a long period of time. And so I think almost anything, I don't care what it is, any pursuit, sewing, baking, art, singing, certainly, any kind of music, any sort of athletic endeavor, sport, when you see somebody who's just in the zone, as they might say, into flow, there's a part of them where there's a part of them that's, their individuality still exists, but they're less identified with it. They're more identified with the flow, with the universe, with something going on. And that's really the best way I can describe it. If you've never been in a flow state before, it's really hard to describe, other than you're doing something and thinking kind of drops away, but you're continuing to do the activity, and it's almost as if the activity is coming through you. It's almost like you're channeling the activity, whatever it is. And I think that's spiritual. And I think it doesn't have to have any specific belief attached to it. And so the word spirit, yeah, I know it includes the word spirit, and some people don't believe in spirits or spirit as this intangible thing. But we're all conscious. If you're watching this, you're conscious. And consciousness by itself can't be really measured. And the brain is not really the source of consciousness. It's a receiver of consciousness, but they can't locate consciousness. They can't reproduce consciousness. Even the best artificial intelligence in the world doesn't have a subjective experience of something, right? I'll give you an example. So I'm sitting here and let's say I'm listening to an amazing symphony through my laptop. I've got Spotify going, and I've got this just symphony, and I can be sort of carried away by it and have an emotional experience of it. Well, what's happening is a bunch of ones and zeros stored somewhere go through a bunch of circuitry and get translated into waves in the air through my computer speakers. Those waves in the air hit my eardrums, and I experience a concert. I experience the sound of a concert. My consciousness is constructing the experience of the music, and it is a subjective experience. This is different than the way a computer experiences, if you can call it that, something like that. A computer can analyze the ones and zeros and say, oh, that is, classical music or what have you. But it doesn't have the subjective experience that we have. It can't feel the music. And even if we were to somehow program computers to replicate emotions, you're still not replicating the subjective experience that we all have. That's a product of consciousness that we all have and that pervades the universe. Consciousness is everywhere. And so, material realism is one set of beliefs, and I am not here to fight with anybody about what they believe or don't believe. But it, like all things, if you really get into it, it breaks down a little bit. And that can be said for anything. That can be said for any belief system, I guess. But at a very basic level, it doesn't recognize that there is way more going on. And even in physics these days, there's way more going on. The double slit experiment, if you don't know what that is, when you measure something, it changes it. How does the thing know? How do light, how do photons or electrons know that they're being measured? That's the thing. So consciousness affects the universe, and some would say that we construct the universe with our consciousness, and there's a truth to that. What you're seeing, if you're watching me right now, is just light waves hitting your retina, and that's creating a signal in your brain, and your brain is constructing, your consciousness is constructing an image of me, and you're constructing the words that I'm saying. You're not hearing the words that I'm saying, you're hearing vibrations in the air caused by electrical components, and your consciousness is assembling the words that I said when I recorded this, and constructing the image of me that you're seeing. And when we watch, I just watched the movie Dune, the new version of the movie Dune, which I really love. I've read the book multiple times and watched the old movie and watched the miniseries, so I'm kind of a Dune fanatic, I guess. And I watched it in IMAX, which is the giant screen that takes up your whole field of view. And I got us tickets right in the center. And you just get completely absorbed into that experience. You can feel it. You can feel when a character is doing something, when a character is in danger, like you feel this nervousness. And I remember there was a particularly tense part of the movie, and I looked over at my girlfriend, and she was like clutching her jacket up to her face, and she was, and we know that that's not a real experience. We know that those are actors. We know that that's, we're not even seeing the actors. We're seeing recordings of the actors projected on a screen, light waves bouncing into our retinas and being transferred into signals. But we have this immersive, subjective experience. I hate to tell you this. Well, I don't hate to tell you this, but all of reality is like that. All of it. All of everything we experience is like that. You don't actually see anything. You have light waves that bounce off stuff into your retinas, and your consciousness creates the images of that. We don't hear anything. We don't smell anything or taste anything or feel anything directly. We don't have a direct experience of anything, but our consciousness is such that we do. Our consciousness is such that it gives us a subjective experience. And this is why computers will never be people. I spent more than 20 years in the computer industry, and I have a significant interest in things they call artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I have seen some amazing advances in that stuff. It took us decades and decades to get computers to recognize faces from images, and human beings can do that before their first year of life. So trying to replicate that, and it's not going through the same process anyway. We can replicate some behavior, we can replicate some decision making. We cannot replicate subjective experience. I have never seen anybody solve for that problem. Even, the the most advanced stuff I have ever, witnessed. And I've gone to, presentations at MIT and all kinds of places. And I don't know. I don't see it happening in the future, at least not anytime soon. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. We are, everything is conscious in its own way, but we have this experience of consciousness. We can get absorbed into it. And that is a spiritual experience. The more absorbed you get into the experience that you're in, but also stepping back and saying, I am this entire subjective experience that I'm going through is something that is created in consciousness. This experience is arising. I don't want to say I'm creating it, because I think it's beyond that. I think it's at another level of reality. And I'll get into that in a future video. I realize this has been maybe a little bit mind-bending, and I hope so. I hope it causes you to think about some things about reality and about how reality works. And even though I practice shamanism as a form of healing, and I teach shamanism and stuff, it's really, for me, a path of direct revelation, and I use it for self-healing and spiritual development, all these things, and to plumb the depths of reality, and see kind of what's behind that. So that is, that's my path. That's where I'm going. So I hope this has been informative. I hope this has given you something to think about. I'm not trying to push my definitions or concepts on anyone, but I've been working with this idea for quite a long time, and you can, I feel like rather than, if something contradicts our previously held beliefs, we become better people, able to make better decisions if we are able to suspend. You don't have to give up anything you believe, but if something contradicts what you believe, try a different belief on, right? Try it on. What would it be like if I believed this? And see how that works out for you. And that makes us much more well-rounded humans, rather than humans have a tendency just to reject everything that doesn't match their pre-existing beliefs. It's called confirmation bias. It is a major problem in the world right now. Trust me when I say this. So try on, if what I'm saying doesn't ring true for you at all, try it on as a belief. I'm not saying you have to adopt it. You absolutely don't. It's not my job to force anybody to believe what I believe. But I'm going to present it to you as an alternative to some definition and sets of definitions that are probably, obviously much more popular than what I'm presenting. But hope that's been helpful. I've got a lot more stuff coming up, and there's more to come soon. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you real soon.